and I probably teach you a couple more things, and then we'll give you some time for questions, and the questions will be free. Usually shrink questions. I got a chart. My buddy went into private practice, put on his shingle, 2 questions for $100. And the first patient says, "You mean I only get 2 questions for $100?" He said, "That's right. What's your second question?" And so these will be free. So we'll do that. But I really want to get through. Listen. So, LISTEN. L stands for lean forward, look them in the eye. I stands for inquire. That's what we call active listening. That means you do something. You nod, tell me, then what they say, what happened then, words like that. I know with men it's difficult to say, how did that make you feel? So you might want to just work on that later. But probably it would be helpful to some of you men. This may be progress if you would just, when they start to talk, and by the way, it's always good to talk to a man, not when he's hungry, okay? If you want to talk to a man, it would be best after a meal. That's probably the best time for a man, because they have PMS too, but it's pre-mealtime syndrome, and so you got to, and then, so men, let me just help you with 2 basic steps here. When she starts to talk to you, lean forward, look her in the eye, and just say, "Tell me more." Surely you can do that. That's pretty easy for you to do. That would probably be progress for some of you. Now, women, I have to caution you a little bit here. When he leans forward, looks you in the eye, and says, "Tell me more," and I really hate to tell you this because it's really discouraging, but it's the truth. He doesn't really want to know anymore. He's a man, okay? So he's doing it because he loves you and he loves Jesus, and I told him to, okay? So when he does that, what does that mean? That means keep it short, okay? He doesn't want the whole novel. He just wants a short chapter, okay? He doesn't want the whole newspaper. He wants the headline, okay, all right? So keep it short. One guy said, "Does it bother you that your wife has the last word?" He said, "No, I'm just excited when she gets to it." And so, keep it short. So lean forward, inquire. S stands for stop interrupting. A man thinks my job is to fix it. See, so he will interrupt you and tell you what to do to fix whatever you're talking about. Remember, a woman doesn't talk for report, she talks for rapport. She's as much interested in the process as she is the product. She wants to talk it. Most of the problems you're going to talk about as a family, there's no answer anyway, all right? There's no answer. So it helps for her, it reduces the stress to be able to talk it out, all right? Because if you don't talk it out now and wait and sit on it, during the event itself, it will be what? Psycho. And so you won't talk it out, you will have it out. See? So let her get it out. See, I used to think my wife wanted answers. I learned a lot of this the hard way. I would come home from work, and my wife would say, "Brienne did this, Casey did this, Angela did this." So I'm a doctor's degree. People are paying me good money for answers, so I tell her, "Why don't you do this, and Casey do this? And why don't you do this, and Angela do that? And why don't you try that? And maybe Brienne will do that." And she says, "Why don't you shut up?" And she's walking off, And I'm thinking, "Hey, lady, they pay good money for this, and the practice, I'm giving you it for free, But she doesn't want my answers. She wants my assurance that staying home with 3 preschool kids all day long is the most important job there is. And it is. Why? Because they're my 3 kids. That's why. That's the most important job. I don't know those people I've been in my practice. These are my kids. She wants the assurance that what she's doing is important, you see. She doesn't want my mouth, she wants my shoulder, She just wants she don't want a solution. There's no solution to 3 preschool kids, They're putting Alka-Seltzer in the bathtub just to watch it fizz. There's no solution to that. There's just a little sympathy, that, hey, this is hard work. And it's hard work, I promise you. We just had, over the holidays, for 8 days, we had 10 grandkids at my house for 8 days. It's kind of like Vacation Bible School without not enough workers. I forget how much work kids are. Kids, Most of you guys, got jobs, I promise you. In the old days, in America, most of us did laboring work and farm work and all that kind of stuff. The guys were tired when they got home because and so the lady ended up doing everything. Now, I used to go to work to rest, from the kids, but women don't have that, and so one thing you can do for your wife, especially if you got young kids, is you put them to bed at night. That when I had our kids, that's what I did. I'm the one that put them to bed at night. And you can learn so much about your kids at night when they go to bed. That's when I call the concrete soft. And that's when your wife can know she can relax. That's what you're going to do for her. And by the way, men, if you can find those little things that's what builds intimacy with your wife, that you're willing to get your Adam suit to do what it does not want to do, to help her out. That's what built intimacy with a woman. And so that's what I did. I got the kids to bed at night. And I learned some. I remember one night I was putting Brianne to bed, and she said that she was studying astronomy, like second grade. I'm thinking, man, astronomy, second grade, that's great. You're learning about the planets? Oh, yeah, I'm learning all about the planets. She said, let me tell you what I learned today. I learned a poem. I said, well, what's that poem? I learned that girls go to Mars to get candy bars, and boys go to Jupiter to get more stupider. I said, you learned that in astronomy? She said, oh, no, the girl beside me taught me that today. And you find out they're learning what they're learning, not in school from a lot of other people, and then you can talk about, boys, and one day, what boys mean and that kind of stuff, and teenage boys, and that they have the IQ of plant life and stuff like that, and by the way, isn't God smart that just think about it. He gave us 12 years to love our kids before he turned them into teenagers. That was smart, wasn't it? What if they were born teenagers? You'd just shoot them right off the bat. But he gave 12 years so you could bond with them. And so you'd like to shoot them, but you love them, so you can't have any choice. So I don't know how I got onto that. But anyway, okay. You taking good notes? Where am I?
You're on
T?
T.
Okay, stop interrupting. I just did that. Okay. Yeah, men. Let me have one more thing on stop interrupting. Thanks. You are taking good notes. Women also interrupt, but they interrupt for a different reason. They interrupt because men don't get the facts right. See, women remember everything. Men do not remember stuff. They just don't. They're just men, And so they get as close to the facts as a man can, okay? And other men listening know that it's probably not true, but it's close, okay? And so it's not any big deal to them either, But women will interrupt. A man will be talking, and especially in public, and a woman, he'll say, we were at McDonald's, and she'll say, it was Wendy's. And he said, well, it was a hamburger place. Who cares what it is, And we were there on Tuesday. Well, it was Wednesday. Well, it was a weekday. I don't care what day it was, And we were at the McDonald's and the Smiths. Well, and she said, no, it was a McDonald's and the Joneses. Well, the McDonald's who the story's about, who cares who they hang around with, And then finally he'll just say, forget it. You tell the story, You tell the story. And you wonder why men are quiet, Because they don't, see, it's not lying, it's man talk, okay? It's other men know it's not the truth, it's just close, And so just let it go. Let it go. Other men understand. They even have instant replay for men because we've already forgot what just happened, So lean forward, inquire, stop interrupting. T, tell them how they look. Remember, nonverbal is important. Tell them how they look. And then tell them what you think they just told you. In other words, find out if you're right about what they're trying to tell you. Don't make assumptions. I used to teach a class on college communication when I was a college professor, and I had a test on communication. The first question would always be, blank is the lowest form of knowledge. And I'd want the students to write in, assumption is the lowest form of knowledge. Had a football player in my class. He wrote, my brain is the lowest form of knowledge. And I gave him credit. I think he was probably right. It's not the things you don't know, it's the things you think you know that aren't so that get you into trouble in relationships. So you think the other person thinks the way you think, especially in male-female. Usually it's just totally opposite of what you think the other person thinks. Remember the BlackBerry story. You got to find out what they like. You got to enter their world. So let me give you a couple of visuals so you can understand that. Let's just say the man comes home from work, and he looks at his wife and says, let's go get a steak tonight. And she just kind of yawns and kind of doesn't smile, kind of looks at him and says, that's a good idea. And then she starts doing something else. Well, most men will think, well, she doesn't want to go. She never wants to go. She never wants to eat where I want to eat. I mean, I need a steak every now and then. She wants to eat that quiche and salad and stuff. And he just starts building it up. He doesn't say anything to her. He just talks to himself on the inside. Remember, what's inside, what happened, what's inside, outside. Okay, you got to get these expectations outside. And remember before the event. And so he's talking to himself, she don't want to go where I want to go, but just on the inside. So finally, 15 minutes later, she may say, I thought we were going to eat. But then it's already got emotional. It's built up. Well, we were, but you didn't want to go. You never want to go. Well, I said I wanted to go. Yeah, but you didn't mean it. And they end up fighting when they could be eating if, when he came home, he said, honey, you want to go get a steak tonight? And if she yawns and just kind of he could say this. Well, you said you wanted to go, but you yawned and you look, you're acting really tired. Do you really want to go or not? Oh, yeah, I'm tired. It's been a long day, but man, steak, protein is probably just what I need. And then she could say the magic words. Remember what the magic words are, lady? That's a great idea. Remember that one? That's a great idea. Let's go get a steak, you see. And then he'll want to be home instead of at work because he just had a great idea, remember? Okay, so let's give you another visual. Let's just say you move into your dream house, and I don't know what dream houses cost here, but it looks like it's pretty high. The housing is high. I'm all over the country, so some places are still. I was in Florida. Florida's it's kind of coming back. Some areas of Florida still used to buy a condo in Florida. They give you a toaster. Now you buy a toaster, they give you a condo. It's just changed a little bit different. But I like Florida. I'm gonna go to Florida in a couple of years because nobody in Florida can hear anyway. You get a certain age, that's why you move to Florida, because it's God's waiting room. That kind of, it's like the average age is deceased down there. And so you just, but nobody turns on their, you get a certain age, why people don't turn their blinker off. Because it used to bother me, why don't they turn their blinker off? Well, they can't hear it. That's why they don't turn it off, And so in Florida, everybody's got their blinkers on. So you never know when they're going to turn. But but anyway, how'd they get housing? Yeah, I don't know what I got, but housing. So let's say you get your dream house. Let's say here it costs $400,000. Okay, you get your dream house. And I'm sure it costs more than that here, but most places in the country, you got your dream house. So you move in your dream house. And then your wife says something like this. This kitchen sure is inconvenient. And what would the man do? He would wouldn't say anything to her. He'd start talking to himself again, The kitchen's inconvenient. What does she mean the kitchen's inconvenient? $400,000 inconvenient kitchen. Have to sell this house and buy another house and get a real estate agent on one, sell another. Probably cost me another $100,000 to trade up. Kitchen's inconvenient. But he could say this. Honey, you said the kitchen's inconvenient. Does that mean you don't like this house? Oh, no, I love this house. This is our dream house. But remember our other house? Remember that pantry? Remember we had those shelves right there by the door? If we just had 4 shelves there, that would be perfect. You see how 4 shelves cost $100? You see how you just saved $99,900? If you just learn how to listen. Listening, you guys will save you money, I promise. So lean forward, inquire. Stop interrupting. Tell them what they said and ask them if you're right. Don't make assumptions. Okay? E. E is going to stand for two words. The first one is express comfort. Express comfort. If you're going to be in relationships for a long period of time, bad things are going to happen. We live in a fallen world, and you're going to have bad things happen. It's just the way it is. God cannot redeem this world either. He's going to create a new heaven and a new earth. So down here, lots of bad things are going to happen. So if you're going to be in a relationship, you have to learn how to comfort each other. My wife and I have places that we go over the years that mean a lot to us, that we've built traditions, that we go there on a regular basis, and just going there brings us comfort. Many times that's by the mountains or the ocean or something. If you get by something really big, it helps your problems look really small, because you know there's a big God and it's a big world. So it's anything like that. For men, the key to learn is don't run away. Men have a hard time with things like that. We don't know what to say, so we'd rather just go do something. Our activity, we like to do stuff. The time you want to walk away is the time you need to probably walk back in. Even if you don't know what to say, touch is always better than talk. Just give her a hug, just be there. You don't have to say anything, but just be there. Most of the staff people know if you have a tragedy or a surgery or something and you go to somebody's house and you don't know what to say, and many times you don't say anything. And then you get a letter a couple of weeks later and say, you were such a comfort. And you say, what did I do? Well, you are willing to be there, and that's important. One of the greatest fears of anybody is we don't want to be alone. And so just being there is a source of comfort. Many times doing something practical is a source of comfort. When we lost our grandson, the lady that was the most comfort to us was a lady that said, I will come to your house. I will stay for 2 weeks. From 9 to 5 every day. I'll bring my own lunch and I will answer the phone. And I will tell people what happened. I know you don't want to repeat that story over and over again. I will get their name and address and phone number if you want to check with them later. And I'll take every phone call for 2 weeks. That was such a comfort to us that we didn't have to go through telling everybody what happened and relive all that again. So many times comfort is practical, And when you're trying to give somebody comfort, always remember a trace of grace is better than a truckload of guilt. All right? Always be graceful. Job's friends, remember when he had such difficulty, quoted scripture and did all kinds of, but they were miserable friends. They didn't know what happened. You don't know why things happen. It's not the time to preach to people, not the time to convict people. It's time to connect with people and just be there, bear there for them. And by the way, speaking of Job, another thing, especially with your marriage, you need to decide to invest regularly in your marriage. What happens is many times Christians get married and they invest in their marriage, and then the kids come along and then they invest in their family and they quit investing in their marriage. Family time and marriage time are two totally different things. See? Remember Mr. Job and Mrs. Job? They lost all their kids. So Job was down to one person. His family now is Mr. and Mrs. Job. She was the only person that could encourage him. Remember what Mrs. Job said to Mr. Job? Curse God and die. I mean, how'd you like to be married to Mrs. Job, guys? I mean, the first sign of trouble, check your life insurance policy and die, Now, why? Because I think they didn't invest in their marriage. They invested only in their kids. You see that in churches. You need to invest in your marriage as much as you invest in your kids. Because the kids are going to go on one day. And if you didn't invest in your marriage, you won't have anything in common anymore. A lot of divorces happen in this country right now after the kids leave home. I tell people life really begins when the kids leave home and the dog dies. You just got to be ready. You got to be ready to do. E stands for express comfort. E also stands for encouragement. We talked a little bit about that today. Everybody has the basic need for encouragement. You ever take your kid to Six Flags or some of those places and put him on the carousel and try to go get a Diet Coke or something, and you wave at him, and you say, I got it, and then they're coming around again, and you wave again, and you say, well, I'm really going to get a Diet Coke, I'll be right back, and they no, you got to wave and you wave every time they come around. That's the way we want people to notice us. We want people to encourage us. Your family should be the home team advantage. That's the home court. That's the people who are on your side. That's the people who encourage you. Look for ways to encourage your family members. Again, with you dads and your moms, find one thing that you do if you have a kid at home, one thing that the kid likes to do that you do with them. And they'll all be different. I have 3 girls. You know that because remember I lied during the engagement period, and God sent me 3 girls. And so, but they all were different. And so 3 girls, 3 different kinds of things that they wanted to do. So I would do whatever they wanted to do. They also traveled with me. At the first of the year, every kid would pick a week when they went with Dad. And so I'd have to speak, but during the day, we would do whatever they wanted to do during the day. And they still remember those trips they took. And they got their own kids now. And one's, I remember the one when Angela, my oldest, was in 12th grade. She was going to go to Baylor the next year. And I said, you still want to take your senior trip? You're a senior in high school. You still want to go? Yes, I want to go. And I've already picked out my trip. They'd look over the schedule to see where I was going. So she wanted to go to Gatlinburg, Tennessee. She loved the mountain. And so she said, I've already picked out where I'm going. Those are the kind of things that build the family memories in order to do that. Those are the kind of traditions you want to set up to do that. So express comfort or find ways of encouragement. This is kind of for guys. Never look at your watch when your wife is talking. Now remember, men have a hard time communicating. The GSR, the galvanic skin response of a man, goes up when the woman says, let's talk. It's been proven. So they get nervous. So they will fidget. They will take out their car keys. They will take out things and bang it around. So when the woman wants to talk to you, kind of like surgery, just remove all your keys and all your stuff, because you'll start fiddling and, because you're a 10-year-old boy grown up. You'll start making noises and stuff. But let me give you something very practical here. Make that weakness, use it as a strength in order to talk to a man. Men talk when they do things because it reduces the stress, and then they're able to communicate. For example, I'm a golfer. The golf swing only lasts 2 seconds. You just do this and you do that and it's over. Even if you hit it 100 times, you're only playing golf 200 seconds. Okay, you're out there for 4.5 hours. What did you do? That's how men talk. We fidget talk, fidget, talk, fidget, talk, fidget, talk, fidget, talk. That's how we do it. Women can talk. Makes us nervous, okay? So find an activity that you do together, and let me give you one. If you will just take walks together, that's a physical activity. It helps reduce the tension. You'll have a better chance of agreeing with somebody when you're walking with them. The body and the mind are connected. Matter of fact, if you watch somebody and they're walking together and they get in a disagreement, I promise you, they rarely can be able to walk in the same direction and disagree. They will usually stop and turn toward each other if they disagree. It's been proven in research just about every time. So learn to take walks together or any kind of activity like that you do together, because the man will relax and you'll learn more about him than you ever have. So learn to listen, learn to communicate, get your expectations out, but remember, get them out before the event happens, all right? Before the event happens. Now, give you a couple other things, and then we'll give you some Q&A questions and hopefully some answers. I usually do at this time the word called lover, L-O-V-E-R. I won't get through all of it, but let me help you a little bit here. L stands for laugh. Have some fun in your family, okay? The Bible says the joy of the Lord is our strength. A lot of churches I'm in, if the joy of the Lord is their strength, they couldn't whip a sick rabbit. They have no joy. I'm a preacher's kid. I can remember growing up, and the parsonage, one year the church was growing so fast they had to tear down the parsonage we lived in. And so we moved a mile away from the church. They still owned the house, but we got to move off the church grounds a mile away. But that meant we had to drive into church for Sunday morning. Sunday night and Wednesday night, we had church all the time, basically. And so, but I can remember Sunday mornings, everybody running late, everybody in a bad mood. You got 32 seconds to eat your Fruit Loops. Praise God, we're going to church. Hurry, hurry, hurry. I'm trying to eat my Fruit Loops. You know, it's Sunday. You can't wear this. No, you can't wear nowhere. Everybody's screaming and hollering. And Dad, my dad's the pastor, you know, so he's mad because we're going to be late again. He's out in the car. I call him the heavenly honker. You know, he's honking the horn, you know. Finally, we get out there. 4 kids. I'm the baby of the family. So 4 kids, I'm the baby. You know where I am. I'm in the back seat in the middle on the hump. Remember the humps in cars? Anybody remember humps? I'm in the middle on the hump in the back. Everybody's in a bad mood, running late. And then we pass the heathen's house. Remember the heathens? There's always a heathen family in the neighborhood, you know. And they're usually on the corner. And he's out there in his underwear, the man, Dad, you know, drinking a Bud Light, you know, in his underwear, and they're playing softball, and they're laughing, and they're having fun, and we're kind of looking at the heathens, and then Dad sees the heathens. Now look at those heathens out there. They don't know the joy of Jesus. And me and my brothers in the back seat are hitting each other saying, we're going to be heathens when we grow up. We for the heathens, because they had fun, you know. And then we came to church, and then church lady, you know, her bun would come unwound. If you can't run into church, this is God's house. Run in church, you know. Sanctuary, be quiet in the sanctuary, you know. That wasn't a sanctuary. It's a building. We're the sanctuary. You know, you don't go to church. You are the church. It's, you know, the good. You know, you say, well, we're in a school. We don't have a church. You are the church. It's kind of good in a way because kids don't have to go to sanctuary stuff. You know, grow up and be perverted. And so relax a little bit. You know, enjoy. Jesus. What did Jesus do to start his ministry? All night prayer meeting, a crusade. What did he do? Went to a party. Went to the wedding feast at Cana. You know, remember that? Didn't share the 4 spiritual laws with anybody. Just had a good time. I won't even do the water wine deal. I did that in children's church one time. Asked a little kid, why did Jesus turn the water to wine? He said, to keep the party going. You know, so maybe so. I don't know. But anyway, when's the last time you just had fun? You know, what if tonight? What if after church? After we leave, one of dads, because you know, dads, we're the ones that says we're usually against everything. One of you just said, what can we do for fun tonight? Where do y'all want to go? You want to go some fun? They'd say, what? What did he say? We got to go talk to the pastor. Dad's snorting sweet and low or something. There's something wrong with him. He never want to have fun. You know, just have some fun. I tell churches all over America, you know, your church ought to go out and just have some fun in the neighborhood with the people. And they would realize, hey, I like those people. You know why churches don't grow? Because they don't like us. Because they think you're mad at everything, against everything, and you don't ever have any fun, you know. And part of it is because we can't, you know. I promise you, if you just went out and had a little fun with the community, some people in the church would get mad at you because you got to tell them about Jesus. You got to share the gospel. You didn't talk about the Bible. You just, it's all those religious people, you know. And religious people will drive you nuts. They drove Jesus nuts. That's why he hung around with sinners all the time, you know, because he said, man, those religious people, they're nuts. You know, I want to hang around them. I'm going to hang around sinners. So loosen up a little bit. Loosen your halo a little bit. You know, have some fun and enjoy life. So laugh. O stands for overlook. Overlook a bunch of stuff. When I was practicing, I was amazed at how many people would come in and pay me good money to fight over stuff that did not matter. There's this play. It's a powerful play called Philadelphia, Here I Come. It's about a man and his son who never could get along. And by the way, let me help the men here. If you have a son, especially a teenage boy, there's 2 characteristics that you have. If you have these 2 characteristics, there's a strong probability he'll grow up to hate you. These are the 2 characteristics. If you're always working, and you're always right, you're never wrong about anything, be careful. Well, this boy said he's leaving home. Never wanted to see his dad again. Takes off. The play is called Philadelphia, Here I Come because it takes place in Ireland, and the young man decides to go to America to seek his fortune. So he knows he'll never see his family again, probably as long as he lives. So he comes home one last time to say goodbye to mom and maybe even say goodbye to dad. Well, he had dinner that night. It went well with Mom, but it always went well with Mom. It didn't go well with Dad. It never went well with Dad. But late that night, they bump into each other at the refrigerator for one of those late midnight snacks. And I guess their inhibitions were low, or maybe they're just sleepy, I don't know. But first time in years, Dad and son actually start to communicate. They start to talk a little bit, even smile. And the boy said, Dad, you know what I'll never forget is that fishing trip. And they talked about it a little bit. He said, you know what, Dad, I'll never forget that red boat. And Dad said, well, son, it wasn't a red boat, it was a blue boat. He said, no, Dad, it's the only time you ever took me fishing. I'm right about this, and it was red. He said, you've never been right about anything, it was blue. He said, no, Dad, it was red. He said, son, I rented the boat, it was blue. And they started hollering at each other over the color of a boat. And they go to bed angry. It's a powerful play because the curtain is closing on the play. And the boy is at the bus stop with his suitcases going to America, probably never see his parents again. The mother's tears in her eyes is waving goodbye on the porch. And as the curtain closes, you can look through the house, and the man has his back. And the curtain closes as you see the man's back turn to his son. And you know there's a man and a son who will never have a relationship. And the reason is the color of a boat. And you say, I can't believe people would fight over stuff like that. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. People fight over stuff like that every day of their life. Stuff that does not matter. That stuff in a couple of weeks we won't even remember. I had a lady come to me. She was mad. I talked to her a little while and I realized why she was really mad. Her and her husband were out shopping one day. They ran across this sale and they bought 5 shirts. She called them no-iron shirts. Bought 5 no-iron shirts. She thought her husband was going to wear one every day to work. They looked great work shirts. He liked them. She liked them. Monday morning, he didn't put on his new shirt. She said, why aren't you wearing your shirt? He says, because you didn't iron it. And she said, well, I didn't iron it because it's a no-iron shirt. See, she bought it because it was a no-iron shirt. He bought it because he liked the shirt. He said, well, I know it says no iron, but I like my shirts ironed and crisp. I'm not going to wear a shirt that didn't iron. And she said, I'm not going to iron a no-iron shirt. Well, you know how that goes. You've probably been there, you know. Ping pong, she pings, you pong, and pretty soon it's ping pong, and then you're just mad. So she's mad enough, she's coming to see the psychologist. Finally, I figured out what the problem is. I said, I have an answer for your problem. I said, you have an appointment next week? She says, Wednesday at 9 o'clock. I says, good. When you come Wednesday at 9 o'clock, you bring those 5 no-iron shirts. I'll look at the calendar. I'll know when you're coming in, so I'll bring an iron and an ironing board. And so you bring them to me. I will iron the no-iron shirts. It'll take me about 3 minutes a shirt. In 15 minutes, I'll be through. But in that 15 minutes, you can sit in my lobby. You can drink a Diet Coke or club soda. You can read magazines in the lobby. You can just have a really good time. You'll be happy. After 15 minutes, I'll be iron 5 no-iron shirts. And I have 35 minutes left on a psychologist hour because it's only 50 minutes anyway. So I can actually have a Diet Coke and read magazines and relax in my lobby. I'll be happy. You'll be happy. You'll have the 5 no-iron shirts. Then you can take them home to your husband. And you can give your husband the 5 no-iron shirts that are now ironed. So now your husband will be happy. Everybody will be happy. She says, you're an idiot. You think I'm going to pay you $150 an hour to iron these shirts? I'm going to go home and iron them myself. I said, sounds like a good idea to me. Matter of fact, I told that story in Arkansas. After it was over, I was at the book table kind of like this, and there was a long line of people. And it was about the 6th guy in line. I could tell he was a pretty fidgety guy. Finally gets to the front. He said that sermon was for me. He said, I got that personality. Little things just get to me. He said, my wife and I hadn't been married that long, and it seemed like every time I'd go to the bathroom, there would be no toilet tissue. Just that cardboard cylinder staring me in the face. I got mad. I said, lady, can't you change the toilet tissue? She said, I change it as much as you do. He said, no, you don't. She said, yes, I do. So we get in a big fight over that. So from then on, I said, I'm going to get proof that I change the toilet tissue more than she does. So from then on, every time I found that cardboard cylinder, I would take it off and write the date and the time. And I started saving them in a big black plastic bag, waiting for my time to come where I could prove that I changed a toilet tissue more than she did. One day we got in an argument over toilet tissue, and I said, "Lady, I've changed a toilet tissue more than you have. I've got proof." And I ran and got my big black plastic bag. I started dumping out all those cardboard cylinders. They started bouncing everywhere. I started screaming at my sweet wife, "I got proof! I got proof! There's a date and time on every one of them, lady. I got proof." Said her eyes got big, and she looked at all those cardboard cylinders bouncing everywhere. She picked up one of them, looked at the date and time, and said, "You're sick." I said, "I'll show you who's sick. We're going to go see a psychologist." Said he made a 5 o'clock appointment with a psychologist. Said he gathered up his cardboard cylinders, looked like Santa Claus going into a psychologist's office. Psychologist said, "How can I help you?" He said, "I'll tell you, I got a lady that I've been married to, never changed a toilet tissue. I got proof." He said, "I started dumping those cardboard cylinders, started bouncing off the psychologist's desk." He said, "I was screaming at the psychologist, 'I got proof!'" He said, his eyes got big. He looked at me and picked up one of those cylinders and said, "You're sick." I carry these around. Why? Because I'm sick, that's why. Another reason I carry them around is, how can I put this delicately? You're sick. We all got the ability to get so angry about things that do not matter. Matter of fact, I was preaching at one of those uppity churches back east. I guess I'm back east now though, aren't I? But you're not one of those uppity churches. I've preached those uppity churches. You know, you've been there. They dress uppity. They talk uppity. You know, they sit uppity. They got the chairs up there. And so I thought this would be a good place to tell my toilet tissue story. Because one of my kind of hobbies is to destroy the dignity of uppity churches. That's just, that's one thing. I figure that's what Jesus would do if he was here. He's not here. I'll just do it for him. So I thought, place to tell my toilet tissue story. So I was telling it, but in those uppity churches, you have a big pulpit, big platform, and those big old chairs. So the pastor was up on his big old chair. So I was having to kind of walk in front of him, with my toilet tissue. And I could just kind of feel he's not liking this toilet tissue story. So finally I finished, but I had to go back and sit by him because I got my big old uppity chair. I got to go sit by him. I can't just go down here and sit. So I got to go to my uppity chair, and I could tell he wasn't very happy. And so in front of everybody, I just handed him my toilet tissue. Said, "Here's a little memento being in your church." Handed it to him, and his veins started to pop out and got red face. Took that and slammed it into his coat pocket. And we all had suits on, that kind of stuff. And I thought, well, what I really thought was, do I have the check yet? Because so I'm not going to get paid here. And so, but the service was over, and we had to go downstairs to get out because it's an uppity church. You got to go down. And we closed the door, and he turned to me, and the face, kind of the anger started draining out of his face a little bit. He said, "I guess you could see I got a little upset on the platform." And I said, "Yeah, it doesn't take a psychologist to spot those veins popping out like that." He said, "You won't believe what happened this afternoon." He said, "My wife and I have been married 32 years. This afternoon, about an hour before the service, we got in one of the biggest fights we've ever been in. It was over toilet tissue. I thought she called you and told you about it." I don't know what you fight over, but I doubt if it's worth it. Let me put it in perspective. God, through Jesus Christ, and because of what he did on the cross, has decided to overlook everything you've ever done or will do. All he asks is that you overlook the things in other people's lives. Learn to overlook. V says learn to value. Value the things that are most important. There was a couple in China. They were engineer, but they were doing some missionary work. They lived over there for 5 or 6 years. And they were Americans. You know what Americans do? We collect stuff. I mean, we downsized our house, but we had to get a storage building because we got so much stuff. We just what we do. And so they were Americans. They just accumulate a lot of stuff. Well, one day the political climate changed in their particular area, and they told them they had to leave, and they had to leave immediately. Friday, noon, they were to be on a boat back to America, and they could only take 200 pounds of their stuff. Now, you can imagine going through your house. Matter of fact, my wife and I have this big bed that we've had forever, and I like my big bed. I like it, and I'd probably want to take it, but it probably weighs 200 pounds. So if I take my bed, I'm done. Okay, that's it. All my other stuff is gone. So they went through probably what we would go through and maybe get some passed down from your great-grandmother, maybe a vase or something, and they were very cautious picking what they would treasure. And they got the 200 pounds. And they get down to the port, and the officials come up and said, we're ready to go. Everything's going. You got your 200 pounds. You weighed everything. Yes. Well, have you weighed your children? And they said, well, no. They said, well, they're included in the 200 pounds. They said, what? He said, yes, weigh your children. They weighed their kids, and it's like 190 pounds for their kids. And all of a sudden, what they thought was treasure became trash, just like that. Probably the two saddest days of my life is when my mother passed away. My dad had already passed away. And we went to her house. And all that stuff. And I realized all that treasure that we'd accumulated was really trash. And in the very next year, we did the same thing with my wife's house. One day, everything you think is treasure, just like that, will be trash. Make sure you invest in things that last. What lasts? You heard it today. Faith, family, friends. See if I can sum it up. There's just two powers in this world. There's the power of God the Father and His Son, Jesus Christ. They've chosen to change the world by blessing the world. Even at Calvary, when they could have blasted the world, they chose to bless the world. There's another power, Satan, the evil one. He's called the liar. He's called the accuser. Satan, at every opportunity, will blast. He will blast you. He will blast marriages. He will blast everything he can. One power chooses to bless. One power chooses to blast. Remember, I like country music. There's a song. It's a pitiful song. Don't listen to it. But it's got a great title. You know what the title is? Who's Your Daddy? Who's your daddy? You see, if I could follow you around at work, school, primarily at home, and bless or whether you blast, I would know who's your daddy. Because our Father has chosen to bless the world. And He's chosen to bless the world through us, primarily through our families. And He says, if you will do that, you will love your life and you will see good days, and His ears will be open to your prayers. It's the best way to live. I promise you. God bless. Okay, I got 10 minutes, right? So you need to tell them something?
No, we're good. We got about 10 minutes or so. Some of you may have some questions, and so I will kind of moderate it so we'll stay on time because we got to be out of here by 7. Anybody have any questions that they would like to ask Dr. Lowry? Yes, Hillary.
There are lots of young people who haven't gotten into a serious relationship yet, or maybe they have. What is your advice or encouragement to them in A, knowing if it's serious, and B, who are we looking for?
Well, the key to life is not finding the right person, it's being the right person. So you need to make sure that you work on yourself and not be too impatient of trying to find somebody who will make you happy. Because the tendency for young people is to think, if I get the right job, I'll be happy. If I find the right person, I'll be happy. Or if I move to the right town, or if I get to go to the right college. And all that's very temporary. So I would encourage them to work on your own life, being the person God created you to be, and then be patient in terms of dating and those kind of things. just enjoy that life until it's clear that then it's time to make those adult decisions. I think as parents, you let them suffer consequences. You don't try to overprotect them too much. It's better for them to make mistakes when they're young. I think too many Christians home try to control their kids so much when they're very young, and they don't let them make mistakes. The mistakes you make are young are very easy to come back from. The mistakes you make when you all of a sudden get your freedom and you can do it. I used to be professor at Gardner-Webb College in North Carolina, and a lot of the kids who came from very Christian homes would come and say things like, "You mean I don't have to go to class if I don't want to? You mean I don't have to do homework if I don't want to? Nobody's going to make me do this. I don't have to come in," and they can't handle the freedom. They haven't made mistakes. Everybody's controlled their life for them. So I would let them go ahead and try to. Only way to be responsible is to give responsibility, and so let them suffer the consequences. And as parents, here's one of the keys for parenting is to realize that your self-esteem cannot depend on somebody else's behavior. God was the perfect parent, yet Adam and Eve didn't turn out too well. It has nothing to do with God. It has the fact that God has given everybody a choice to make in life. For example, mothers. If say it's cold outside, a mother will say to a kid, "Put your coat on," and the kid says, "I don't want to put my coat." "You put your coat on." "I don't want to." "You put your coat on. You're not going to go outside." "I don't want to." Put your coat on. Now, why does she do that? Many times a mother does that because she doesn't want the other parents to say, "What kind of mother is that? Let her kids go out there without a coat." Okay, that means her self-esteem depends on what other people think. All right. That gets dysfunctional. You have to reach a point where they're not your kids, or God's kids. So you let the little twerp go out there without a coat, and he'll freeze his rear end off, right? And then pretty soon he'll be knocking on the door saying, "It's cold out there, I need a coat," all right? And then he will grow up to be a responsible adult and won't be in a mobile home beside his mother for the rest of his life. You see, that's how it works. And so that's the way you think about raising your kids is this is what you should do, but you do this, these are the consequences. And then you follow through with the consequences. You're like a kid soon learns that a stove it's on will burn him. I mean, he learns that very quickly. And so guess what? They don't touch the stove anymore. They understand this is when you do this happens. And that's what parents, you're just like a stove. When you do this happens. I'm not going to get mad at you. I'm not going to holler at you. That's just the way it is. When you do this happens. You're teaching how the world works. Whatsoever man sows, that shall he also reap. Now, again, the good news is with God, you may sow here, but he may let you reap somewhere else. He can use brokenness in this area to bless you in another area. I tend to answer questions in long. That went forever. I don't even know what the question was. Do you remember? Okay, another question. It's a good answer though, wasn't it, man? Yeah, good answer. Yes.
There's a lot of children today that go off to do their own thing.
Yeah.
What's your encouragement for parents that are waiting and standing and watching?
Well, my encouragement would be is let them live with the pigs. They need to. They don't have enough pig life. They got to have some more pig life. And nobody will ever. Remember, I said break down, then you have a breakthrough. The prodigal son. Nobody changes until this happens in your brain. Here's what the prodigal son said to himself. Remember, we all talk to ourselves. The most important conversation you have is with yourself, all right? Start listening to what you're telling yourself, by the way. And by the way, whatever you tell yourself, that doesn't mean it's true. See, some of you learn the wrong stuff. You're telling yourself stupid stuff. So you got to monitor that behavior. But the prodigal son, the Bible says he came to his senses. When did he come to his senses? This is when he came to his senses. When he realized there was better food in the Father's house. When he himself realized this is a better life than the life I'm living. Okay? That's when he realizes. People will never change until they think this life is better than this life. And many times this life has to get pretty bad Pig life has to get pretty bad before they decide, like with a prodigal, it got really bad. The worst thing a Jewish kid could do would be live with the pigs. That's the worst thing a Jewish boy could do. So the worst thing had to happen for him to come to his senses and be the person God wanted him to be. That's hard for parents to realize, that the worst thing may have to happen to your kid for him to be what God wants him to be. See? And otherwise, if you're not careful as a parent, you'll become a rescuer, especially Christian parents. See, we were brought up on the story of the Good Samaritan. The Good Samaritan was in the ditch, all right? So the guy came along and he's in the ditch. He got him out of the ditch, which he ought to. I mean, he helped him. Notice he didn't quit his job or anything, or stayed with him even. He said, I got stuff to do. I tell my son-in-law's best way to help the poor is not be one of them. And so he went about his work. He did come to check on him later. But I guarantee you, if the next week, if he was on the same road and the guy was in the same ditch, he would say this: I made a mistake last week. I thought the problem was the ditch. The problem's not the ditch. The problem is the road. You're on the wrong road, because every time you're on this road, you wind up in that ditch. And if I get you out of the ditch today, I'm just rewarding you for being on the wrong road. So I'm going to let you stay in the ditch and suffer the consequences, so you'll figure out how to get out of that yourself, so you won't go on that road again. Now, once you've got them out of the ditch once, because you thought you were helping them, it makes it very difficult not to do it again, because they'll call you names. They'll say you're not a Christian. You're supposed to love people. And then they will up the ante. They will say, well, you don't think I'm bleeding enough? They'll hit them. I mean, they'll do weird stuff to get you to enable them to get them out of the ditch. It gets more and more dysfunctional because they're trying to get you to bail them out. See, we call it in the recovery movement unhelpful, harmful help. You're just prolonging the agony, when you do that. And so you have to have that balance. Yes, to be the Good Samaritan, help people, but realize once you cross that line, it's not help anymore. It's unhelpful, harmful help. You're just rewarding irresponsible behavior. Happens so often, especially in Christian families. My brother was an alcoholic, ended up dying basically of alcoholism, and one reason was my mother continued to rescue him for his entire life. Most research says an alcoholic will not get better unless he's 1,000 miles away from his mother. Because mothers grow. At a certain age, mothers have to take care. They have to cover for their kids. When a kid's young, you can't let him suffer consequences. You can't let him. 2 years old, you can't let him put his finger in the light socket, or you can't let him, play in the road to suffer the consequences. He could be killed by a truck. You can't do that. You have to cover for him. So mothers naturally cover for them, and they have a hard time not covering when they become adults. They become adult children then, and they keep covering, and that becomes dysfunctional. And that's one reason why you need to have a healthy marriage and a husband that helps support you, because it's hard. It's hard to watch a kid live with the pigs. It's very difficult. You would be there to welcome them home. That's what you do. You welcome, throw a party if they come back home. And then don't be the elder brother. Don't be miserable. Don't be the one at church that's the elder brother, the miserable one, that's always griping and complaining about the rules and the regulations because you've been here the longest and that kind of thing. Because elder brothers pout all the time. Welcoming fathers party. There's welcoming father churches and there's elder brother churches. You've probably been in some elder brother churches. They gripe about everything, rules, regulations, legalism, all kind of stuff. Welcoming father churches are just trying to get people in the kingdom and throwing parties and having fun. Hey, come to Jesus. This is good news. Never forget what we have as good news. The angels didn't show up and say, I got a plan to make you miserable for the rest of your life. If you come to some churches, you'd think that's what they said. They came and said, I got good news of great joy. Keep the good news, and you'll be a welcoming father church. Well, that's another long answer, but hey, that's what you do.
Maybe time
Okay.
for one more question. Any other just burning question?
Yeah.
You mentioned when you're talking about that, it's important to comfort, not convict
Yeah.
when it comes to your friends or family. So when is the point that you reach where it's time to convict or hold accountable and not so much comfort because of...
Well, first of all, you got to make sure your connection is strong. They've got to know that you love them no matter what. They got to know that this is in other words, when you tell them, if you're different from them, you tell them with using the words I feel, not you are. You don't make it on them. This is the way I feel. From my point of view, I think if you did this, this would be helpful. Then you let it go. You don't, and if they say, well, I'm not going to do that or whatever, you don't try to convince them that's what you're supposed to do. Then you start to become God. That's God's problem. That's not your problem. You want to communicate, not manipulate. So you get what's in here, out here, and now this would be good for you to do, but whether they do it or not, you can't control people. It's just the way it is. And that relaxes you because now they're God's problem. That's why the Bible says in that 1 Peter passage, likewise, Jesus turned them over to him who judges righteously. He realized people were God's problem. People are God's problem. They're not your problem. You don't. Well, let me just do one last thing and we'll stop. Okay, this will help you. Group therapy. This will be worth you coming. Group therapy. Got to participate. It won't work. Put your hand over your heart. I'm going to lead you in a little pledge. Repeat after me. It won't work unless you repeat after me, okay? I, being of sound mind, do hereby acknowledge that I have not, nor have I ever, or will I ever, control the universe. Therefore, I resign as general manager of the universe. Don't you feel better already? He's God, you're not. Get over it.
Oh, man.